So I haven't done one of these in a while, and I thought it would be interesting and fun to go back to my roots. Here are 10 child's play questions that every atheist has answered over and over again.
Do you really believe that science is the only answer to all of life's questions?
No, and I don't know who told you that. Science has not answered all the questions, but it has given answers that are more palatable than God did it.
If God doesn't exist, why do you care if people worship him?
When I first became an atheist, I was concerned that I and others had been duped. I cared and attempted many times to talk people out of their faith, while later I stopped caring about what others believe. Believe what you want, but if your aim is to convince me that God exists, it's going to take a lot more than the questions you have, at which point you might have an argument on your hands. So the answer is presently, I don't.
Seriously, can nothing create something?
What kind of question is that? Oh, right, that's begging the question. The flaw is inherent in the word create, as you're implying that it's a creation before you know it was created. I know of no creation. Everything that exists is evidence that it exists, not that it was created.
If you've never been to the ends of the earth, if you've never been to every planet, if you've never been to every part of the universe, how do you know that God doesn't exist?
Atheism is not a claim about knowing. It's a claim about belief. Knowing is in the realm of Gnosticism. For the purposes of this little Q&A, I'll say that I do not know that no God exists. I don't believe that one exists. So there's your answer. I don't know that.
What is the origin of life?
Let me guess. If I don't know, that automatically means that God did it, and not just any God, but the God of the Bible, Yahweh, the supposed father of Jesus. Either way, it's very likely that life started as nitrogenous base sequences we now know as RNA, bound by the laws of chemistry in tiny vesicles made of fatty acids. All of these things would have been abundant on early Earth.
If humans are animals, then where does our sense of justice, where does our sense of morality, where does our sense of what's right and what's wrong come from?
What makes you think that animals have no morals? Think about how dogs will save their owners in crisis. Well, if you're dead, they'll eat your rotting corpse, but while you're alive, it's certainly a good example of having empathy, at the very least. Either way, there are myriad examples of moral codes of conduct that animals display that have been studied at great length. Wolves, chimps, elephants, whales, penguins, and dolphins all display moral codes of conduct that, if violated, result in consequences from the group. The human sense of morality comes from the same place, our evolution.
If you were given irrefutable evidence that the God of the Bible is real, would you become a Christian?
Probably not. The main reason being that the God of the Bible is a most awful deity with a despicable track record of murder, torture, lies, and most of all, confusing if cryptic rules of conduct that even he could not obey. And at this point, I'm convinced that people who make that type of argument were themselves converted by fear.
Tell me something. If evolution is real, and if evolution is really happening, how come there are no transitional forms that we can observe?
This again? First, evolution no longer needs transitional forms or fossils to demonstrate that it's true. Genetics and biochemistry have demonstrated repeatedly that every living thing on the planet is related genetically. But if you want the forms that you say don't exist, here, Australopithecus afarensis, Australopithecus africanus, Homo habilis, Homo heidelbergensis, Homo erectus. I mean, shit, man. You have such good production quality in your videos, yet for some reason you can't use fucking Google?
Do you live according to what you believe, or do you live your life according to what you lack in belief?
My lack of belief in a god or gods doesn't dictate much except that I don't believe in a god or gods. By implication, you're saying that if a god exists, we must live in accordance with its will. I wouldn't do that even if a god did exist, because it's very obvious that that god could care less about what happens here on Earth.
If God doesn't exist, and the Christian dies, the Christian loses nothing. But if God does exist and you die as an atheist, do you not lose more? Will you not lose your soul?
You are some low-hanging fruit, my friend. Pascal's wager? The oldest, most mind-numbingly boring question of all. Here's a caveat. If God does not exist, then you've wasted your life. But as for the question, it reminds me of almost every pastor I've ever known trying to scare the children in the front row who are passing notes instead of listening. First, this is a false dichotomy. The inherent design of the question implies that there are only two choices for an afterlife. The Christian God exists, and we go to hell, or there is no God and nothing happens. You can add the possibility of there being more than one God, or a different God than the one you worship. Which brings me to my second point. The probability of the God of the Bible being the correct one is infinitely small compared with how many different religions there are. Third, the idea of being sent to hell of any kind, for the petty crime of disbelief, is so immoral that it demonstrates what I said before. I would not worship that God if he did exist anyways. Is that it?
Hebrews chapter 11 verse 3 says, "By faith we understand that the universe was created by the word of God, so that what is seen was not made out of things that are visible."
Something from nothing. Huh.
Now, just because we can't visibly see something, it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. We cannot see God, but it doesn't mean that God doesn't exist. For example, we cannot see the wind, but we do feel the wind. We also feel the effects of the wind, and we also experience the movement of the wind. And so the truth is, creation itself testifies of an all-powerful and imaginative creator.
You already said that you know that I, as an atheist, require irrefutable evidence, yet the very thing you know would convince me, you do not have, nor will you produce. You can't have it both ways, man. As always, if you liked it, give it a like, share, and sub. Thanks for watching.